New York.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the distinguished chair for yielding and for his leadership in advancing this incredibly important issue. America is the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we cannot truly be a free country unless women have the freedom to make their own health care decisions. The radical rights effort to take away that freedom all across the country is unacceptable, unthinkable, untenable, unconscionable, and un-American. We're going to make it unlawful. We're going to pass the Women's Health Care Protection Act, and we are going to protect and respect a woman's freedom to make her own health care decisions. I yield back.
Gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleased to yield to the lady from Missouri who has fought for life for so long, Vicky Hartzler.
How much time?
1 minute.
The gentlewoman is from Missouri is recognized for 1 minute.
Anyone? Sure. Debbie? Joe? Oh, okay.
Sure. We talked about a transformational change, say, in policing. Can you please define that? You're talking about applying, say, critical race theory, for example, in policing. Can you define that?
Yeah, what is critical race theory?
Actually, can you tell me?
You asked me the question.
Okay.
You asked me the question, so I'm asking you, what's critical race theory?
You actually. Can you define that, and is that being applied, for example, in policing?
Can you cite the words critical race theory in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? Thousands of words in that bill. Does it appear?
No, I'm asking you.
I'm wondering because you asked me a question, so I'm just trying to get clarification.
I actually want to know. Can you tell me what exactly is transformational police? What exactly is transformation in policing, and are you applying, for example, the whole term critical race theory in policing?
Yeah, transformational policing, as defined by the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which I think is urgently necessary, includes several different provisions. Overall, it involves trying to change the mindset of policing from a warrior mentality that exists among some to a guardian mentality. The problem is that when you have a warrior mentality that clearly exists among some, then you tend to view certain communities, communities of color, black communities, Latino communities, low-income communities of every race, including in rural America and in Appalachia and in small-town America, as enemy combatants when you have a warrior mentality. And as a result of that, you see things like a knee to someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. People getting shot in the back. Young boys like Tamir Rice being killed instantaneously while playing in a park. Breonna Taylor killed while sleeping because a no-knock warrant was erroneously executed. That's a warrior mentality. We want to change that to a guardian mentality, which is embraced by organizations like the Fraternal Order of Police, which views policing through the lens of partnerships between law enforcement and the communities that they represent to lift up public safety for everyone. That's transformational policing. That's what the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is all about.
Sir, I wanted to ask you, Kevin McCarthy is likely to try to censure Representative Waters tomorrow. I'm curious if you think any Democrats will be supporting that, and if you all will move to table that.
I certainly will not support that frivolous resolution, and I think that Chairwoman Waters has made clear, certainly the perspective of the House Democratic Caucus is clear. We support peaceful protests consistent with the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and the right to petition the government peacefully. That is what we continue to support. Now, Kevin McCarthy should focus on his own conference because the Republicans in the House are a mess right now. Perhaps he should sit this one out. When you think that Kevin McCarthy has the nerve to say something about anyone, when he supported the violent insurrection after the mob attacked the Capitol, threatened to assassinate Nancy Pelosi, kill other members of Congress, hang Mike Pence. He then came back to the Capitol, voted to support the big lie, which ignited the violent insurrection, and continues to play footsie with Donald Trump. When you've got a situation where Lauren Boebert is a mess, Matt Gaetz is a mess, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a mess, clean up your mess, Kevin. Sit this one out. You've got no credibility here. We support peaceful protests.
May I follow up just very quickly? Do you support what Representative Waters said?
2017 and 2018, you frequently lamented that Republicans speak in headlines and Democrats speak in fine print. How is this any different from the problem you were talking about all those years ago?
Yeah, I didn't lament, but you're correct. I made that observation, and I made that observation because it happens to be anchored in an important reality that sometimes we tend to speak in fine print because we care about governing. And we care about governing because we care about getting things done for everyday Americans. And if you're going to get big, important things done for everyday Americans, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Affordable Care Act, the American Rescue Plan, and now the Bipartisan Infrastructure Agreement, all initiatives led by Democratic presidents in Democratic-controlled houses and senates, you have to master the fine print. And that's what we've done consistently for everyday Americans. But with Sean's leadership and the DPCC's leadership and Speaker Pelosi's leadership, we also recognize that we're going to have to message, persuade, and communicate in headlines. The Republicans are only interested in tearing down things, not lifting up everyday Americans. And so they speak in these negative headlines over and over and over again. We're going to be very successful in getting these things done, mastering the fine print, and then communicating in a persuasive way, led by Sean and others, what we've done for the American people and why it's been so transformational.
Follow-up, though, a lot of those bills that you mentioned, Democrats didn't get credit for immediately. It took time. It took years before Democrats really were able to turn that into a political victory.
You want to speak, Sean?
Yeah, fair enough. And all you got was a better country. But we're going to change that. And that's why we're doing 1,000 congressional events all over the country, telling people what we're doing. That's why the president's in New Hampshire today, communicating with the American public. We take that responsibility seriously. We don't expect them to know if we don't tell them. That's fair. We're going to tell them. And just to build off what the chairman said, well, my dad used to say, any jackass can kick down the barn. It takes a carpenter to build one. And we're the carpenters in American politics right now. And we're going to measure twice and cut once, but we're going to deliver good policy that grows this economy, creates jobs, ends the pandemic, eliminates the supply chain crisis, brings inflation back down, reshores our manufacturing jobs, and makes sure we aren't dependent on foreign energy, and all the other parts that are holding our economy back as we come out of this global disruption. And if we're guilty of caring about the details and getting the policy right, well, that's why you see some of these robust policy discussions among Democrats. But at the end, we're 100% united. We need to be to deliver these votes. We don't have any margin for error. Worth noting that Franklin Roosevelt had 319 votes in the House when he passed the Social Security Act. He had 100 to spare. We've got 3. That means the party has been historically united, even as we achieve these historic results.
Hold on, let me just go back, and then we'll come back to the front row. But we'll go to this side, and then to back there, yeah.
The distinguished chairman of the Democratic Caucus, Mr. Jeffries.
Gentlemen's recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, the hypocrisy coming from some in this chamber is extraordinary. The radical right consistently claims to be the party of law and order, but they refuse to sign off on an investigation into the January 6th violent attack on the Capitol, which embodied lawlessness and disorder. They have chosen party over patriotism. They have chosen autocracy over democracy. They have chosen the big lie over the rule of law. They have chosen conspiracy theories over the Constitution. And yes, they have chosen the most corrupt president in American history over the peaceful transfer of power. But truth crushed to the ground will rise again, and we will uncover the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, whether you like it or not.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Infrastructure. Do you feel confident about the path ahead on infrastructure? Is there a deal with that moderate faction right now?
I'm very confident. I know Steny Hoyer will likely have more to say about this momentarily, but from the very beginning, there was never a disagreement about substance. Within the family, sometimes there are disagreements about approach, and we've worked through the differing opinions over the last few hours. And I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is that as Democrats, we remain united behind the objectives that have been set by President Biden to get things done in a manner that provide direct relief and assistance to families and children and everyday Americans. We're proud of the work that we've accomplished together already with the American Rescue Plan, but we also recognize as a caucus, progressives, New Dems, moderate centrists, blue dogs, that there's much more work that needs to be done.
Because it didn't always look united overnight last night, and so I'm wondering what you think the takeaway is for folks who know that these issues are going to come up again in September in a much bigger, more real way. I mean, what about people who looked at the process last night and thought that looked really messy? What does that mean for September?
Democracy is messy, and Democrats are not a cult, we're a coalition. And when you're a coalition of progressives and New Dems and blue dogs, of people on the left and on the center left and in the center, of the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the Asian and Pacific Islander Caucus and the Women's Caucus and the Equality Caucus, we're proud of the fact that we actually reflect the gorgeous mosaic of the American people in every possible way, including life experience, which is reflected by these brilliant, courageous co-chairs of the National Security Task Force. When you have a coalition, as opposed to a cult, you work through issues, but you do it as a family. That's what we've always done. That's what we'll continue to do. Go back to this side.
Okay. I see what you're saying, but do you think the way that the moderates did this is a productive...
I'm going to give Pete this question, by the way.
Is this a productive way to get things done in the House? And what does this do to the trust deficit that does exist between your progressives and your centrists?
House Democratic Caucus is a family. We are a big family. We are a diverse family. At times, we're a very enthusiastic family. But that is the House of Representatives. That's the brilliance of the House. The framers said we should be the institution that is closest to the people. That's why we have 2-year terms, as opposed to the 4-year term of the presidency, the 6-year term in the Senate, the life tenure of Supreme Court justices. Closest to the people. And in the words of the framers, their words, not mine, to reflect the passions of the people. So I embrace the fact that we're a passionate caucus, but a passionate caucus that at the end of the day gets things done for the people. I'll go back left, thanks. With the Biden administration, as well as our colleagues in the Senate from the very beginning, as we've been grappling with this deadly pandemic, which is both a public health crisis that has caused so much pain, suffering, and death, as well as an economic crisis that has caused a tremendous amount of dislocation, particularly for the poor, working families, and middle-class Americans, we've had 3 objectives: crush the virus, provide direct relief to everyday Americans who are struggling, and lay the foundation to revive our economy and create opportunity and prosperity in every single zip code. That continues to be our objective as we are moving forward. And today we spent a lot of time talking about the fact that one of the most transformative parts of the American Rescue Plan will begin to take effect. And we need to make sure that every single American, every single constituent that we represent understands what's coming on July 15th of next month, when the child tax credit will take effect. And the average American family with children will see approximately $500 in relief every single month for the rest of the year and hopefully beyond. It will lift more than half the American children who are currently in poverty out of poverty, and it will also benefit working families and middle-class Americans. More than 90% of the people in almost every single congressional district, families with children will benefit. It's transformative, and not a single Republican, not a single one voted for it. And so the reality is that we're continuing to advance the ball on behalf of everyday Americans, and they continue to play games in trying to suppress the vote and undermine our democracy. We now yield to our Vice Chair, Pete Aguilar.
On voting rights, I know you guys are going to take up the John Lewis voting rights bill. Senator Klobuchar said that's one way forward. She thinks that could be the way forward. But S1 met a very immediate end over in the Senate. What makes you think this will be any different in terms of if you can get it passed to get it over to the Senate? And have you been strategizing with your Senate colleagues on this?
Well, there has been a lot of informal conversations that have taken place with our Senate colleagues amongst various, members of the House Democratic Caucus based on the relationships that they have. And of course, our leadership continues to talk with the Senate Democratic leadership and the members who have been most actively engaged on the voting rights issue, which include the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce Beatty, and of course, our House Majority Whip, Jim Clyburn, have been engaging with Senate Democrats as well. But it's important to understand what is at stake. Fundamental to our democracy is the right to vote. And Republicans have adopted voter suppression as a campaign tactic and strategy because they are bankrupt in terms of ideas to make life better for everyday Americans. That's why we are witnessing the voter suppression epidemic that is taking place across the country right now. And it's a shame. We were just, many of us, in San Diego a few days ago, where U.S. Navy ship John Lewis was christened. That's a tremendous recognition for an American hero. But John Lewis lost his life almost on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Beaten, battered, bloodied, and bruised. Almost lost his life fighting for voting rights over 55 years ago. And why are we back in this place? And so, yes, we're going to fight for voting rights with the fierce urgency of now. That is what the moment requires. And we will not give up. And we will prevail because we have no other option. Thank you, everyone.
The gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, is anyone else tired of hearing the insurrectionists in chief continue to lie about the 2020 election? Over the weekend, once again, the former twice-impeached, disgraced so-called president of the United States of America falsely claimed that he actually won the election and that it was stolen from Joe Biden. Something is really wrong with this guy. And I need some help in trying to figure it out. Is Donald Trump A, a pathological liar, B, a sociopath, C, a malignant narcissist, or D, all of the above? I'll be around all week. Look forward to hearing from you.